Signore e signori, buonasera. Benvenuti alla Casa Italiana zerilli-marimò della New York University. We are delighted to have you here tonight, because tonight, for us, it's a very special evening. We present a brand new opera that is going to be staged fully on Thursday, so the day after tomorrow. You have all the information on our website. You can look it up. If you need help and assistance with the tickets, somebody from the staff is going to help you. But we're very proud of this enterprise. First of all, because putting an opera on a stage, you think it's complicated. It's 100 times more complicated than you think it could be complicated. And it's not even our first one, but there are always surprises. But it's also a great challenge for the mind, for the heart, for your organizational skills, for the people who work with you. But we're very, very happy to have a chance to present an opera that has in the title the name Rossini. Probably, well, I cannot say the greatest, but one of the greatest opera composers of all times, who composed, as you may know, only in the first half of his life. And in the second half of his life, he moved to Paris, he cooked for his friends, hang out, and there was no way to convince him to compose anything else. Maybe, right? Because there is a mystery there. And this opera is not only important for us because it's about Rossini, but also because of the people involved in the making of the opera. First and foremost, allow me to recognize the librettist, who is Luigi Ballerini. I'm going to give you brief introductions because all the bios that are completed with all the things they've done in their lives is on our website. Click, and you're going to be brought to a full biography for each of them. But for Luigi, I have to say something, because he was chair of this department of Italian, he was director of the Casa, he was really the founder of the energy that is still around here. And we cannot do without him. So we have done all sorts of things with him, including a conference of poets from the States and from Italy. We had about 40 poets here. We all thought we were going crazy, but at the end, everything worked out. And Luigi, I just want to say one thing. He's not only a poet, an author, a literary critic, for many years a professor, both here at NYU and many other places, and then he closed his career at UCLA. But he's also a real mentor and a real cultural impresario. And for the other things, he's received many accolades. I don't think you receive many accolades for the things that you're doing. For example, putting together a library of titles of Italian classics that either have never been translated or have been poorly translated. There are dozens of these works in the Lorenzo da Ponte library that he curates for the University of Toronto Press. And he gets everybody involved, from colleagues, young and old, graduate students. It's really, his battery never ends. And of course, there had to be an opera in Luigi's curriculum. David Winkler is a New York-based composer. He composed some 200 pieces, different kinds, for orchestras of different kinds of music. Enrico Fagone is really the rising star among Italian conductors. He has already received many accolades, recordings, and we are very, very happy that he accepted to direct this opera. And then we have Stefanos Koroneos, that you see right there, who was for many years the director of the Teatro Grattacielo, that, as you know, brought to New York Verismo opera at the highest level. And Stefanos is also a brilliant stage director, and with very, very innovative ideas, for which he received many recognitions. And we are very happy to bring to you the dream team behind the Rossini Perduto. I was saying before that we just had 2 full weeks of Italian theater here. About a dozen companies from Italy presented different kinds of work. Some of them were really stunning. And next week we're going to start with the film festival, Italian Film Festival at Lincoln Center. And on the 31st we're going to have here about a dozen Italian film directors together. But between theater and cinema, we had to put opera, and a new opera for that matter. Because it's also an opera that, of course, it's acted, it's sung, it's performed as music, but there are also projections. So it's a combination of all the other art forms. And that's why I was saying before that, think of a sandwich, the other two are like the 2 slices of bread, but here we have the stuff, real stuff, the salame, right? The prosciutto di Parma. And I think talking about Rossini, it's only appropriate, right? Of course. To come up with the gastronomical metaphor. And they prepared for us a delightful evening in which they're going to tell us something about the opera, the plot, how it develops, and they also brought some of the artists that are going to perform the day after tomorrow at the premiere of Rossini Perduto. So without further ado, I'm asking you to please welcome very warmly our panel. Thank you.
Yes. I suppose you'd like to know how this opera came about. It all goes back to Alexandre Dumas, who was a great Italophile. He went as far as writing Garibaldi's autobiography. and he did.
It must be true.
Yeah. But he also helped, by the way, militarily. You know, he brought rifles and guns to the expeditions of the 1000. Garibaldi was very grateful, and in fact, for a couple of years, he appointed him as chief editor of a newspaper which Dumas wrote in Italian in Naples when Garibaldi was dictator of that. But above all this, if you read Dumas, as I do religiously, the Three Musketeers, and so you may not know that for a while in 1849 he wrote what they call feuilleton, that is to say, the bottom of the front page of a daily paper called Le Constitutionnel. And once a week, he would, he had this rubric, and by chance, I looked at pages of the Le Constitutionnel, which you can actually find, the actual paper at the New York Public Library. The one that says, dinner chez Rossini. I dined with Rossini. And then the following week, we don't have the menu, but we know what he was told at that dinner, which is the story of the two students of Bologna, the L'étudiant de Boulogne, which in fact was supposed to be the libretto that Dumas was going to write, and then Rossini was going to set to music. Now this, happened during a dinner in Bologna when Dumas reproached Rossini for not writing operas anymore. He was 36 and he was done with opera. Not with music, because he continued to write chamber music and whole sacred music. But he didn't want to have anything to do with the world of opera anymore. He was fed up. But Dumas said, well, what if I write the libretto? In that case, of course. Dumas did not write the libretto. Rossini did not write the music. But according to Dumas, he was so enthusiastic about the idea that even without knowing the libretto, he went to the piano and improvised the overture. We don't have a single note of it. And so presumptuously I said, well, if Dumas didn't write the libretto, maybe I should. I know it's a little presumptuous, but I said, let me give it a shot, okay. Then I wrote the libretto, I stuffed it in a drawer, and there it sat for quite a while. One day, a former student, a young colleague of mine, comes along and says, I'd like you to meet David Winkler. He is looking for a libretto. And of course, I didn't know anyone. He had no clue that I had written the Rossini Perduto. But I told him to join us for drinks, and maybe you can suggest someone who has a libretto. And so David came to this beautiful watering hole inside Grand Central.
God, it was noisy in there.
Noisy as hell, yeah, but they make great martinis, you must admit. So
you would know.
David came along and said, do you by any chance know someone who has an Italian libretto? And I said, actually, I do know someone. He said, who is it? Said, the undersigned. And would you like to read it? Apparently, he did not dislike it. And that's when we started. But at this point, I'd like to leave the microphone to David and pick it up from there. Otherwise, I'll keep you here until midnight.
I'll keep you here till midnight. No, Maestro, thank you so much. And I refer to Luigi as Maestro because I consider him to be really a literary lion in the classic fullest sense of the word. And he has, such this incredible breadth of knowledge and understanding, and he understands symbolism and literature, and transposing one language into another and all of that, which I subsequently learned as we began talking more and more about Rossini Perduto. But he left out one thing, and that is when I first began to talk to Mr. Tomasi at this party before he set up the coffee with Luigi. It wasn't just that I wanted a libretto. I wanted an Italian libretto specifically. I did, because I knew, for whatever the reason, I wanted to write an Italian opera, and I didn't know who to talk to. Where do I go? You can't buy an uncomposed libretto in a store somewhere. You have to be fortunate. You have to sort of like trip over it, or you have to fate or something like that. A confluence of elements have to come together all together at the same time in one moment. Then like that, and that's what we got. We got one of those moments where our mutual friend, set up the coffee at the loudest bar in the history of the world, and we had this, this chopped up conversation. What was that? Was that? You say you have a libretto? Was that? Wait, was that? That's right. Yes. You're a composer. Yeah. So it went like that for a while. It's so difficult to understand. Then we finally got down to the point where it's Italian libretto. Okay, I like that. And then after that point, as Luigi says, we began to, have meetings, discuss the libretto, and I began to, over time, we met for a number of months, almost a year. It took me a while to absorb this work. Actually, I'm still absorbing it, because what you must know is that the libretto, at least to me, is really one great work of lyric poetry. It cannot be broken up, really. And as you progress with it, you realize how subtle and interesting and beautiful and symbolic the language is. So that's why it took me so long to absorb it. I'm still absorbing it, I have to admit it. My responsibility, I learned, was to do my very best to try to support the language, support the Italian, to somehow, if I could possibly go beyond just supporting it, maybe I could extend it a little bit, or to create a little bit of musical symbolism, architecturally speaking, throughout the work. So I did my best to try to, follow the language and to support the text and to create really a melodic world that reflected the ups and downs and the continuing opening of doors, which the Italian language is for me. So for me, I tried to echo the lyric poem with a piece of unending melody, actually, if you follow it through, and to create what Dumas had in mind, which was a darker, more Gothic version of what Rossini might have written. I'm very self-conscious about talking about any other composer, but in particular that one. I don't want to talk about that person because I have not earned the right to talk about him in public. But nonetheless, he definitely weighed on my mind and my imagination, and I decided I would take the Dumas route and to create something that Rossini had not yet created, which is what Dumas felt, at least mythologically, that Rossini should do, and that is to take his strengths, his abilities, his tools, and make something darker, a little bit more melodramatic, something that would have been, say, in how should we say, almost, I'm not saying medieval exactly, but it would have been taken from the activities of the time, not Wagnerian, but sort of associated with that a little bit. Nonetheless, darker, with a more serious kind of romance in the middle of it, not a comedic romance, and so that sort of describes the route that I took, and I think that. That of course the opera is going to be performed in a couple of days. However, it's the result really of months of preparation. I have learned, since this is the first opera that I have written that has come to fruition, to be realized into full production, I've learned that an opera is not just about two people who are collaborating. An opera is about 100 other people who come into the picture. And so it's been an enormous learning experience for me, and everything from the casting all the way to the stagecraft and whatnot, and movement and lighting and design and all these things. So I feel really blessed that this has been an amazing opportunity, really, for any composer. I would say I am particularly fortunate that I'm now surrounded by a community of really amazing artists and people who have achieved their work at a very, very high level. I've learned that probably the greatest facet of being a composer in this world, in the classical world, is really the collaboration you have, the ability to work with other people who are experts in their own field. This way you learn, you perhaps can give them something as well, and everyone grows personally. And I've also learned personally about how many people it takes to put together one show. It's really quite extraordinary. A lot of you, of course, already know that, but I've learned it for the first time personally personally, myself, to see all that has taken place. It's been an enormous learning experience for me. There's been a learning curve in a variety of ways, but I think there's more to come, and I consider myself to be a desperate student. I mean, I really want to get better at what I do. I think the future will allow me to do that, and I want to thank Luigi. I also want to thank Enrico Fagone, and I especially also want to thank Stefanos Koroneos for being part of this amazing team, which is making this work a reality in a couple of days. It's quite astonishing how quickly it has come to be born over really only 2 weeks worth of rehearsing. Really quite incredible. But I think the results will be borne out. I think that the show has, at least to me, many really wonderful qualities. So, I look forward to you all sharing that. And I think the next step probably is for me to give the floor over to Stefanos, since he is the next one who came into the picture to discuss, how he entered the picture, and also what was involved in being able to get the opera off the ground, so to speak. What were the first steps to making it a reality?
I would suggest that we break out this conversation instead with a little bit of a music expert, and then we move back to
the stage director.
Yeah,
you see.
Yeah, I think it would make things a little bit more interesting. Why don't we maybe invite Minosse on stage, and Davide Piva is our wonderful baritone from Italy, and I'm sorry. Can I may I have one of these, and then I will give it back to you right away. And I want also to introduce our amazing pianist. I'm sorry. Yeah, Juan Lazaro, no, who has been with us all this time, collaborating and working with us in this production. Juan Lazaro, who, by the way, works at the Met. He's one of the young, super extra talented pianists at Metropolitan Opera. Oh yes, of course. I think you should be doing the honors for that. It's Act 1, beginning of the act. Minosse, who is inspired by a Greek mythology, and this guy here is Greek too, even though I grew up in Italy. Is the TV presenter, the person who practically interviews everybody about Rossini. Please.
Si dica che si umili sua impareggiabile eccellenza. Garbuglio di circostanze che trasforma il desiderio sacrosanto del ripetere nell'angoscia e la sterile sete del replicare.
Great. So now it's time for me to say a few things about this extraordinary work. First of all, I want to say that for me the most important part of a new opera, but also of an opera that was written 100 or 200 years ago, is storytelling. In other words, when opera was created out of a need to put in music stories. Stories are very important to me, and I was very drawn right away on this story for many personal reasons that I'm not going to bore you with, but also for the fact that this story offered a version of what might have happened at Rossini when he practically one day decided not to write music anymore. Together with that, I have a very photographic view of the world. Somehow I see the world through many, many images, and that's how my mind works. In other words, I like to create, I like to combine my passion for stories, for storytelling, and my passion for images, and I mash them together and make a nice salad, and that's my project. And that's why, like Stefano said, I work with a lot of shadows, a lot of lighting. I have strong opinions about lighting, and I have strong opinions about multidisciplinary projects who involved a lot of art forms put all together. So when I opened the libretto of Rossini Perduto, I decided that the first thing that I was going to do is I was going to spend months over-analyzing every word, because I wanted really to understand this incredibly poetical libretto that has a lot of references from Dante Alighieri, because I wanted to really understand how can I translate this into acting for my cast. So I wrote, it took me maybe 3 months to write my interpretation of what the characters were saying in every phrase. And then I started with the second part, which was a visual part. I see this opera like an opera within an opera. In other words, during a production period of an opera that starts with the first act, we have the interviews and we move to the stage. We have the comedy part, we have the tragedy part, and then at the end of the opera, the rehearsal of the production is over. This was strategically thought because there is the first part of the opera which happens within a studio, TV studio, so everybody is there just to offer opinions, to say why, in their opinion, Rossini didn't want to write anymore. And there are people in that TV studio who have very strong opinions. There are people who like Rossini, and there are people who strongly dislike Rossini. Then the action moves to the house of Rossini, before, in the past, where everybody's trying to convince Rossini to write that famous opera. And where Rossini always skips the main theme of the opera, which is, can you please write that opera about the two studenti di Bologna? It has a light character, it has a comedy, it has a lot of comic moments, and then moves into the opera within the opera, which is exactly the part of I due studenti di Bologna. So I thought to myself, well, how about if I not only tell the story through text, if I push my cast as much as possible to tell the story through the text, but also I create a visual part that is relatable to newer audiences, but also tells the story of who I am as an artist and as a creator. The result, hopefully you will all be there, you will see it on Thursday. And but most importantly, what I want to stretch out is that opera, unlike any other art form, especially music art form, is the collaborative experience and effort of a lot of people. It's a multidisciplinary, and I know this word is used very loosely these days. I know because I do a lot of fundraising for Teatro Grattacielo, and I can tell you that everybody says they're doing multidisciplinary projects, but I feel like opera is a real multidisciplinary effort because it involves so many parts. A composer, a librettist, artists, visual artists, singers, which are the most amazing human beings ever. Musicians on the pit, production staff, crew, technicians, you name it. It's a very complex art form, and one that really should be pampered and continued through centuries. Thank you. I think, obviously, I want to give the word to this amazing human being here on my right, who is Enrico Fagone, our conductor and now very good friend. But I think that we should break it one more time and invite Jongwon Choi, who is singing the role of Stendahl, to offer us the next music moment from Act 1. Stendahl, in this moment, is again offering his opinion. He's in a TV show. He has been asked, well, what can you tell us about Rossini? And this is what he says.
Di assori, di duetti
Before we move on, I would like to say that here we have a little bit of drama because Stendahl wrote some harsh critiques in real life about Rossini's first wife, Isabella Colbran, who was a superstar. She became a superstar very early, but she also lost her voice very early. So that's where the drama kind of starts developing, because he introduces the drama and the fact that Isabella Colbran lost her voice in this precise moment. Enrico.
Buonasera amici, good evening. Yes, I perfectly remember the afternoon when I was in Germany, speaking with my brother David. We speak every day 2 hours by phone, even if I am in Italy. And he told me, I have this, I have this idea. I met this incredible man, Luigi Ballerini. He had a libretto from 10 years, was sleeping there. And then we made another call, and I was always in Germany, and they say, we will do it. I said, oh, really? Yes. I perfectly remember. You cannot imagine. I'm father. My son Leo is 9 years old. And I feel this opera like my second child, because it's so much work behind this kind of operation, and was so many good connection in the stars. First of all, David was so good, to get in contact with Luigi, and then we already was a special connection with Casa Italiana that immediately, thank you, Julian, thank you, Stefano, was already very happy about to make this project with us. And then, of course, Cecilia Dupre find this incredible director that made the clear direction with how we should do what we should do. And by the way, this guy just made his debut at the Metropolitan with Rossini, Barbiere di Siviglia. Incredible. And so it's a very emotional work for me, and I performed many music by David. And interesting, we were talking yesterday about this, that we never talk about his works. So usually composer and conductor, they meet, they think, oh, here I want to do this, I want to do this. I never ask, and he never tell me anything. So, and we still here after 10 years. And I think, because when you say something, you destroy the connection, because it's very delicate. So conductor, when take a full score, you can destroy the life of the composer. So that's why it's very important that you study as much as you can, and it will be never enough, the score. But then there is a beautiful letter, letter between Verdi and Toscanini. And Toscanini said, Maestro, why I made this really little rallentando and you didn't complain? And he said, you know why? Because this is what I just really want. But if I write rallentando, conductor will not understand, and they will make too much rallentando. So you understood the music, you take this way, and it was perfect. So it's so delicate, the relation in music, because he have everything in his head, and he's such a sweet man that he never say anything to the singers, to me. But I see him very concentrated, listening everything, and I think it's very good when we create this kind of connection. This is a lovely connection with friendship, with love for art, and COVID teaches to us how it was a hard time, just stay alone at home without making great project together. And so this is a very special project. And my work as a conductor, we speak always about text. This is the line. We always understand the text. We are Italian. And we speak, also David speaks Italian, he studied in Florence with beautiful American accent, but still beautiful, and speak very loud. Usually when I speak English, I speak very loud, and when I speak Italian, I speak less. When I speak Italian, I speak from forte to fortissimo. And by the way, it was very interesting, because I have to tell you, from the point of view as a musician, in reality, there is something behind the text, often, and I didn't told him, but there is a very few moments where genius composer like Verdi, like Puccini, give the real message before the text with music. And this is the most dramatic moment, because in all the important, world, when there is a problem in some country, that there is dictator of this kind of things, people cannot speak. They cannot say we are suffering, but what they do with traditional music. And that's why sometimes it's so suffering, the music. And in this kind of opera, I hope you will be able to attend on after tomorrow, because there is some magic moment like this, when there is a wonderful libretto from this genius, and with this amazing storytelling on the stage, with these wonderful singers, but we have a wonderful orchestra. And sometimes there is a few spots when the most tragic moment is when the music is an anticipation of the text, because this is something untouchable, and that really is just an emotion, and you don't know why. You already feel what is going on in the history. This is the magic of the music, and something about Rossini. I think he was. Who knows if he was depressed, if he was lazy, if he was rich enough. But, I think he made such an incredible decision that he was not able to make something better. And that's so difficult for an artist, because we live for the audience, because for many years you was usual to do this, and then at some point you stop, and people, so it looks like they look at you, why you're still alive if you don't compose? So can you imagine what this guy was feeling? And so he made the most beautiful opera, and of course, and people were still thinking. And who knows if Dumas really asked for Rossini, or he wanted just to write a libretto with Rossini. It's always about the point of view of egocentric decision. From my point of view, this is one beautiful gesture of love, because he felt the music so high that he didn't felt enough ready to write another work. And that's fine. I found fantastic that Luigi, which is a really genius, made this, because it's kind of a gesture for love, because composer and the librettist and all these people have an horrible life often. Conductor, director, musician have a beautiful life. We take a lot of money, But then when we are gonna die, nobody talk about us. This is the truth,
Say that again?
No, so I think this is the interesting point of view, because you do something that is gonna be for forever, and but it's a different aspect. It's always about love, about egocentric view of life, and I think the most important thing is just do the best. And my work again as a conductor is try to be a less egocentric, and just try to keep these little kids from these two guys and make my best for express their idea and their love for music and art and the libretto. Thank you.
Thank you, Enrico. Well, why don't, of course.
May I say?
Of course.
Because I think it's very moving what you said, and I think the notion of anticipation that David has captured is essential. I think I just want to emphasize, and thank you for pointing it out. And the second thing that I think is very, very important is that probably the truth of his silence is due to his knowledge that he could not go beyond himself. And in fact, we have a finale in the opera has 3 acts and a finale. And in the finale, the ghost of Rossini reappears and talks to all the people who have made the opera, this incredible group, and he approves of what's been done. And in fact, we end the opera with a quotation from an American poet, Ezra Pound, who says that to do is not vanity. And the fault is all in the silence that faltered. So Rossini becomes a tragic figure in term. We always think of Rossini and la 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 la, but this is the real Rossini, and I think David captured that beautifully. Thank you.
I agree.
Amazing. Thank you, Luigi. So I guess we are going to be inviting on stage Colbran herself, yes. Maia Gonzalez, soprano, and Juan, who will be singing the answer that Colbran gives to that guy, Stendahl. The operatic answer, of course. Drama. I would like to point out that we have decided, while I was working with my friend Enrico here, which he talks with him 2 hours per day, he talks with me 1 hour per day. I'm jealous. We have to amp it up.
We'll work something out.
Okay.
They never talk to me.
Luigi, you never answer, by the way. We tried to create a 20 WhatsApp group. You never join us.
But you and I talk 3 hours a day.
So we decided to insert once in a while original Rossini from Rossini's music for some operas, only as a way of commenting of what happens on stage, but also introducing a little bit of Rossini itself as a composer. And this is one of the moments where she is telling Stendahl, "You're wrong about me. How dare you telling me that I'm finished? And let me give you a lesson of how singers sing." So we're going to go to Act 2 now to introduce you the man himself, Gioacchino Rossini.
Maestro.
The maestro. Franco Oportus is a young baritone from Chile. And of course, Juan, who is on the piano. Act 2. Thank you, Franco. Bravo. Thank you, Franco. Before we pass to Act 3, which is the opera within the opera, I want to explain a little bit that we decided while we were working on this opera to create a Rossini that is over-rehearsed, a personality that is over the top and a little bit flamboyant, that he over-rehearses everything because that's the only way that he can get away with murder. In this case, get away with all the pressing questions and demands that the industry has pawned on him. So every time he's somewhere, he's always pretending to be somebody else, or he's really giving very elaborate, over-rehearsed answers to questions as a way of skipping those questions and never giving an answer. Great. Act 3, I will invite on stage the two studenti di Bologna, the two students. All this opera is mostly about these two guys that they appear in Act 3, Beppo e Gaetano. Alessio Borraggine, which is a tenor, he's from Rome, and Romano
Romano di Roma.
and Zachary Angus, who is a baritone from Philadelphia. Thank you, guys.
A che pensi? Penso chi muore uccide per risarcire. Che ricompensa potrà mai esserci nel togliere di mezzo? Ah sì, Gaetano, un uguale dolore scompiglia la sonno nel nulla, il sogno della mia vita. Che sogno di averti accanto a me, ogni giorno come fratello, oltre che come un amico. La nostra Bettina, così bella, e sapessi come ti amo. Pazzo, non avendomi mai veduto, non ti ha forte veduto con miei occhi, non ti ha forse letto delle mie lettere, saprebbe riconoscerti tra mille. Ma vostro padre certo non vorrà che il suo maggior tesoro se lo pigli una vita da dubbi natali. Meglio tessere trame più sensate. Per esempio, promettere di non lasciarci mai, mio dolce amico. Nessuna famiglia mi trattiene, verrò dove tu andrai, se il sole splenderà con uguale calore sui nostri destini. Il tuo passo sarà il mio passo, mia la tua voce, solo se all'unisono i nostri cuori più non batteranno, le nostre vie divergeranno. Che orribile pensiero, non accadrà, solo la morte avrà questo potere.
Thank you, guys.
Bravi, bravi. Yes, this is actually one of the most wonderful, sweet moment in the opera because it's a real representation of friendship. And we know that sometimes love, between friends is even strong, than between couple, And one interesting thing that I would like to ask first to all my three friends here, but first to Luigi, is one of the most interesting things for me in this libretto and in the opera is how you created this. Of course, you used real characters in Rossini life, and how you started to this imagination character, how you created the connection, because it's so well connected, the difference of these two kind of character that is very interesting.
Well, actually, I'm very much indebted with Dumas. He's the one who create. The only reason why we know the plot is because Dumas wrote about it. He summarized it. And so the characters of Bettina, of Gaetano and Beppo, which really form a one unit. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, they want to blend into the other, regardless of biological differences. In a sense, it's one unit, and they want to promote this connection in a very spiritual manner. And that's why we resorted to the appearance of a ghost. The ghost, obviously, the two friends are separated by the death of one of them, assassination actually, by the bandits and so on. There's all kind of a little bit of drama in the traditional sense. And then the ghost of the person who has perished reappears and reunites with the with Beppo and who has been following him, and at that point it's when Bettina comes into the scene. So that's a crucial moment when the three of them, except that one is not, is only there as a ghost, but the unity is maintained. And so I think this is something that Dumas understood, and in fact in the exchange, this is perhaps something you want to say, that on the stage you will have someone narrating the story, and on the other side of the stage, Dumas turning it into a libretto, and then in the middle you have the scenes that actually are exchanging. And so that's something that Dumas brought about, and I think because, but I know that in France they didn't want him with the immortel, but he's an immortal writer anyway.
Yes, of course. And David, so just from the music point, often in the opera, the composer always connect with one special theme, on one special sound, or one special section, one character in the opera. And for example, we have a beautiful moment with Beethoven. When Beethoven is on the stage, he uses many Beethoven mark like Tempest. Beethoven is very interesting character because he was always sick, getting older, always sick. He was not able to hear his music. He changed 75 house in Vienna because he was never happy enough about the view from his window, because he was so sad that he could not hear his music. But if you see his symphony, the first symphony starts with major chord 7, which is a tragedy for the Vienna of that time, because it was a total revolution. He had many problems with his teacher because he was asking, what are you doing with Haydn? But then at the end of his life, Beethoven 9 is just la gioia, is a joy. He was so sad, he was so angry, but his soul was different from his body and his health problem, And so was a very interesting person. And David used, for example, in Beethoven, I recognize a lot of his kind of instinct, So how you choose the main theme for any character of the opera with music?
Well, thank you, brother, for a really interesting question. I mean, you may have noticed that each character, what I try to do is to support each character with their own sort of melodic world, and yet they were all somehow connected. And it's very difficult to say actually how it is that I do it, but I will offer you something about the process, and that is that, as I said from the beginning, it is really, from the start of this, I've really been devoted to try to support and possibly even further the text, the libretto, which is a wonderful, great lyric poem, as you can already hear. So what I do is, to the best of my ability, I allow the poetry to influence me melodically. I follow the language. It's a combination of following the shape of the language, which is why from the very beginning I wanted to write an Italian opera. Why? Because for me, Italian is certainly the most beautiful language in the world, the best thing we've come up with in terms of language, as far as I'm concerned, and it is also the most beautiful language for opera, therefore. From my perspective, Italian is like a continuous set of opening doors. There's never really an end. It's always open. Every single word, every single phrase, every single paragraph ends with some sort of, vowel opening. There's light constantly shining through the Italian language. So I allowed myself, or I worked to put myself in a position where I could permit the language to influence me. And I followed the meaning of the language to the best of my ability, and also the shape. I followed the shape of the language. I didn't always get it right. I know, I mean, guys, they're absolutely right. Some of the accents I didn't quite get, and there's certain, you're like, well, so that's why we had 3-hour conversations, because, I didn't always get it right. But very well that my heart was in the right place. And I tried my best. And even if the accent was wrong, maybe the tune would be good enough and that kind of stuff. So it was a combination of the language and then the openness and really the undulating quality of the language and continually wanting to continually open. And this is really part of something we haven't discussed and really probably don't need to, but the overall architecture of the work. I tried to follow the overall, lyrical poem structure, and so the piece is actually one long series of melodic lines and, so to speak, songs, you might want to say, if you wanted to isolate them, that continue all the way up to the finale when Rossini makes that final appearance and casts his judgment on whether the work is good enough or whatever, and then finally the setting of the Ezra Pound. It really all leads to that. So that's what really inspired me, the meaning of the language and the shape of the language and the sound of the language. And I actually set up, as I mentioned, I wanted to write an Italian opera. I thought I knew why. But actually, I learned a lot of things in the process, and that it's really about language and also connection, and the ability to create characters. I wanted to write conversation. I wanted to write connections between people. I wanted to give individual characters an opportunity to really express themselves, to express themselves in the extreme if they needed to. Because my experience with Italians is that there's nothing too extreme, right? I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's last minute stuff. Everything is pretty much disorganized, and yet it turns out to be fantastic. This is sort of like a stereotypical vision of what it's like to be, say, to go to Italy for a few days if you don't really know the culture. I mean, it's like, how does it all happen? There doesn't seem to be any technique. How do they do it? So these are the kinds of things that sort of inspired me to want to do this, and I think it led me to this magnificent collaboration with these guys and also with this fantastic cast of singers that gets better and better every day. I mean, I'm so blessed to be working with you. You guys are this fantastic set of birds, and I really love it.
With that said, first of all, I don't know if it's a composer's thing. I don't know if you noticed that just like Rossini, he always works around the questions, but he never really answers what exactly he was asked. I don't know if it's a composer's thing. Anyway, I think that we should be breaking this conversation with the next musical piece, which is we're going to invite on the stage again our tenore.
No, abbiamo cancellato.
Ah, ok, allora facciamo il duetto. Ok, so we will invite on stage our Beppo and Bettina. Bettina is the tragic heroine of Act 3. Who is the love interest of the tenor? Because you cannot not have an opera without a tenor and a soprano that they're not in love. And here's a love duet: Alessio Borraggine and Sarah Goldrainer.
What's your prize?
No, it's good. It's okay.
Ma voi, Bettina, siete voi.
Bravissimi, bravissimi, bravissimi tutti. Really was an amazing cast. Thank you guys for a wonderful. Bravi, un altro applauso. Bravissimi. Bravissimi, bravissimi. Bravi, bravi, bravo, bravo, bravo. Yes, so Rossini was not always just a buffo composer, funny composer. He composed also some serious work, and I think this representation of his soul by Luigi and David is a special because represent not only the happy Rossini but also the sad way. And I'm very lucky because I'm one of the orchestral side that I can see the show. I should pay the ticket. How beautiful is on the stage. And so I would like to ask to Stefanos, which is creating an incredible representation, I think, of this soul in few moments about shadow, about light, about, when there is this moment where all the cast with the choir are all together, like... So how you can get this kind of clear representation? Because for me, it's easy because I have always space for imagination with music. But you have to make a clear choice. How you can become so clear and so right, like you did in this work?
Thank you. First of all, thank you. Really, I feel honored that you said that. Thank you so much. So here is how I work. I start with a story. I start with a text. For me, text is very important. I get very inspired, and in this case, text really inspired me a lot. It took me maybe a little bit longer to comprehend, to really absorb all the information, because Luigi wrote a very text that was so rich of so many ideas. And then I pass to the music, which is written by David, and it's a fantastic, a really fantastic composition. So I try to absorb the character of the music after I have absorbed the information that is being given to me by the text. But because I always had a very big, strong ideas about the visual part and how I really relate to theatrical words, and because I'm a minimalist, literally, if you come to my house, it looks like a hospital. It has like, I live in a huge loft, and it has like a little thing on the wall and nothing else, and very minimal furniture. So I relate somehow to this minimalism that forces my favorite people in the world, the singers, to act and to really tell the story. And then I allow them, or I push them, or I empower them, you can call it as you wish, to tell that story while I'm telling my story, which comes from my views of lighting, of shadows that created by footlights, by floor lights. So practically, I ask my singers to be lit from in front, from the floor, so that I can create shadows on the wall. And it depends of the storytelling. I change, from opera to opera, and I combine them with the visual part that tells also or enhances the story. This is a little bit taken by techniques that used to have been, they're not my invention at all, I promise you. They have been around for thousands of years. Indian theater has used them, Chinese theater has used them, and I just had always been fascinated. Greeks use them in the Greek tragedies, which is practically my land. And so I I make a big salad of all my passions, and that's the result.
Thank you. Very interesting.
I would just like to say one thing, that as you can see, stage directors have something very, very in common with composers. They never really tell us how they do it. They only tell us what they've done, but they don't tell
you if I tell you.
And by the way,
don't forget our original statement. This is a great team,
Right. No one really says it. I did want to say one other thing, by the way, that has gone a little bit unnoticed here and untalked about, and that is, the orchestra plays quite a large role in, well, really, most any opera, but most operas have an orchestra. And in this case, it really is sort of like the other character. It operates both to support and hopefully to further everything that the singers are doing. I think we're getting closer to the point where the ambiance in the venue is becoming a little more balanced now, and so we can really hear that role. But there's something I really have to say, that this is not a what one would call like a simple kind of a score, but it's because it's trying to express as much of the various kinds of emotions that are going on, either with those characters or characters which are becoming later or ones that have already come before. It's really a kind of an overall mood and mindset, and it really takes an extraordinary kind of music director to make it happen. And I think that we all really owe a great debt of gratitude for Enrico Fagone for coming here, for conducting this work, and also for dedicating himself these past several months to become so fluent with the score that he's able to conduct under any circumstance with any group of performers. And Enrico, I really want to thank you for the magnificent job you're doing with this orchestra and with this opera. It's miraculous.
Thank you, grazie, David. It's a pleasure.
Great. I think that we are almost at the end of this. Yes.
I think we're going to say how to get tickets for those who don't have.
Well, I'm happy, if I may, sorry. It's an interesting situation for me because most concerts which I'm involved in, either my music or if I'm producing them or whatever, there's always going to be some tickets left over at the end. This is one opera, one event where there are no available tickets. So for those of you in the audience who may have been thinking about possibly acquiring a ticket or two to this event, there are no tickets available. This is a sold-out house, and actually I'm particularly happy about that for the singers, because I know as professional performers, you want to be able to perform in front of the fullest house that you possibly can. So as far as that theater is concerned, it's going to be full, and so I'm really happy for you guys. You get a chance to really shine, to perform, to show what you've got, which is quite a bit. And as for the audience, I want to thank you very much for attending this musicale, and I have to apologize to you. I'm sorry that there are no more tickets available. I mean, there's going to be archive available and possibly another production or part of a production in the near future. Obviously, Casa Italiana will be the first to know, and we'll make what you're going to be on the list for the next production. So I apologize, but on the other hand, it's something really, I think, for us to celebrate, and so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes. No, absolutely, yes. I mean, something to be proud of. The fact that in New York City you sell out this show is a great thing, and bravo, kudos to all of you. Great. Any questions? Anything that you would like to ask? Oh, okay. Don't be shy, we don't bite.
Dai amici, forza. Don't ask money, anything else is good.
Yes.
On Casa Italiana website.
Well, we don't know whether we're going to post it. We're going to record it, and then we need to decide together what to do.
Right.
Recording. Probably at least excerpts of it. That
Yes.
will be. I don't think we're going to put the entire thing.
Right. Great. Yes. I mean, yes. We will definitely publish some parts of it, and who knows? Maybe in the future there can be also a chapter number 2 of this production.
Well, if we can catch Enrico while he's flying between Germany and Lugano and New York, we may even produce it again, don't you think, in the future?
Of course.
And then maybe we'll have it more than once, and to allow more people to
Absolutely.
come to the opera, because I think it is serving also somehow a pedagogical function, in the sense that this beautiful music is miles away from what kills us every day in the world, the type of music that we are bombarded with, and that deafens us really to the beauty of music. And we're all victims of that because, and so I think the opera is also a good vehicle for, in general, and this one in particular, of course, to re-educate people. And I'm very glad that the singers are young people. I'm sure they have friends. I can speak from my 85-year-old balcony here and say that I am sure they have friends of their own age which are also appreciative of what
course.
they do. And so maybe we can start a little avalanche. You know, avalanche always begin small. You know, there are a few pieces of snow that move and then it grows
Yes,
and grows
yes,
and grows
yes,
and it becomes
yes.
an avalanche.
Yeah,
Of course.
And I can only think of what I'm going to do when I grow up, and I can think of a big avalanche in front of me.
yeah. I mean, it's you know, and if exactly this opera doesn't happen right away, we are a power team now. We have a whole thing going on between us, and I love those guys, and we already planning. I cannot tell too much of the future.
Yes.
And
Yeah, not just the Rossini, but
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
We
also
are
the
already.
Da Ponte. You know,
Yeah, we are talking about.
I have to stop them, you know.
Yeah, we are already planning what we are
Yes.
doing next
Yes.
with my company.
Yes.
So this is, you know, even if the exact opera doesn't happen, but this collaboration will continue.
Yes. A giovedì.
Giovedì.
We have just 1 minute, so before to say hi, why you choose Rossini Perduto, the title? How you made it?
well, it's because it seems that somewhere in the world there should have been an opera by Rossini. So we assume that, although he did not compose it, I think in his mind he had composed it, and we don't have it, and so we call it a lost Rossini. Wow. As if he had composed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A giovedì.
Thank you,
Ciao.
everyone. Ciao.
Grazie Casa Italiana. Grazie Stefano. Grazie Stefano.